Before I begin, let me just get this out of the way because I often get questions. The picture behind me is a crater lake. It is top of Mount Baekdu, which is located between China and North Korea. According to folklore, this is the birthplace for Korean people, so it's highly significant place for Korean people. So let me get that out of the way. In May of this year, I celebrated the milestone of living in the United States for 50 years. I immigrated to the States in 1971, along with my parents at the age of 12. Obviously, coming to the States was not my own volition. I was in sixth grade in elementary when my parents one day told me that we were moving to United States of America, and overnight, my life changed drastically. Coming to the States, knowing one word of English, if you can guess what that is, it was no. Back then, the schools in Korea began to teach English from junior high school, which I was not, I had not reached yet. And I remember like yesterday wondering when I will ever learn how to speak English. But with a blink of an eye, 50 years have passed. Fortunately, I have retained and somewhat improved, I guess, my first language and learned English enough to point out preaching in either language and oftentimes utilizing both languages at the same time. During the last half century of my life, obviously I have gained indescribable experiences, some good, some bad, like anything else. And unfortunately, I have seen my share of negative moments. I have received numerous derogatory name callings. Some individuals deciding to challenge me to go back to wherever I came from. And it's usually, either Japan or China, because those are the most well-known countries, I guess. Once I corrected this guy who told me to go back to Japan, and I gently told him I'm from South Korea. So I guess that was my way of trying to teach him, hey, if you want to be that way, at least have the right, correct information. While in school, I also became a victim of physical violence in junior high school because of who I was, what I was. But, I imagine, however, living in the Los Angeles area has allowed me better circumstances than many other areas in the US where overt racism has been more prevalent. I have to say that I have often witnessed and experienced racism below the surface. But once in a while, it raises ugly head, protruding to the surface from time to time. For example, I lived through the LA riot in 1992, when racism manifested in many ways. And recently, whether it's due to the general frustration from the pandemic or encouragement from the last several years of particular leadership, we have found out an increase in anti-AAPI crimes and unfortunate events taking place. But I have to say that racism most of the time, as I have found, has manifested in subtle ways. For example, micro insults and micro invalidations and those things have been the norm for many individuals over the years, and I unfortunately is still on display oftentimes. Being an immigrant, one of the toughest challenges to assimilate into the main society. And as I endeavor to assimilate into this country, I recall an interesting experience I had in college. A fellow schoolmate who was white invited me to a Christian gathering on campus, and I decided to show up to see if I can get involved, make new friends, and what have you. Now, at the beginning of the meeting, which was attended, I noticed, by all white individuals, the young man who invited me introduced me as his Korean friend. I began to think about that introduction. First, I barely met the guy, so I doubted whether we were friends. Maybe I had different definition of a friend. And secondly, I wonder why he had to mention the word Korean at all. And it was somewhat of an awakening moment of my realization that no matter how much I tried, I would not be able to shed the reality of my skin color or ethnic background. Well, many years later, the current role that I have, I often travel across the nation, and I get this question many times. Where are you from? I understand the connotation of the question. You know, in my earlier years of living in the States, I would answer, well, I'm from South Korea. But now I reply simply, I'm from LA. Unfortunately, the latter answer sometimes garners a perplexed look from the inquirer who wonders whether I miss the question's intent. I went through the usual identity crisis of adolescence, plus struggling with my identity as a Korean-born individual while searching for my identity as an American. I ultimately found myself being in the margin because I feel like I'm not 100% Korean nor 100% American. My reality is I live in a dual culture, dual tradition, dual language, dual food, and so on and so on. You know, the singer Neil Diamond had a song title, a hit song titled I Am, I Said, and part of the lyric is sung as follows. LA's fine, but it ain't home. New York's home, but it ain't mine no more. I often feel I can identify with the prose. My home, which isn't mine anymore, happens to be located across the Pacific Ocean. Now, as a person of faith, I believe I was saved by discovering my identity as a child of God, which transcends my identity as a Korean or American. The new find has allowed me to be comfortable calling myself a Korean American. I am what our community consider as 1.5 generation. So if you are fully adult, then you may be one point generation. And if you were born here, it would be second generation. But since I came here when I was 12, I am kind of in the middle, 1.5 generation. Because of my discovery, I am comfortable under my skin. And I have to say that because of my discovery, that not only discovering of myself, but others around me in this great city of Los Angeles, where the diversity is our reality, and because of that, we are richer for it, and because of that, I strongly believe that we're better for it. So thank you for allowing me to share this short story.
We may seem different.